Hello everybody, welcome back to another building video. Today we are going to be welcoming spring with this beautiful fairy build. This build was completed in only 7 hours of building. To get started, we are going to be working on our fairy's torso. So this is going to be an important place to start because we want to get the proportions correct. Now because of the way she's leaning, I used those cross sections that you see there to help me get a slight bend in her backbone without throwing the proportions too far out of whack, although it was still quite a challenge to get the proportions correct on this torso. Eventually I begin on the legs. Now at first I actually start the bone in the wrong place, so I misposition her hips a little bit, and because of that her arms end up off-centered and her neck is also just a little too long. So we're going to be going back and forth a lot, fixing up these proportions, mostly working by hand using the line command sometimes. I find the line command really helpful with organics like this because it helps me to not put a bend in the bones. Now I try a couple different leg positions and I find the one that's a little closer to her chest works out. I was actually using a reference picture for this, but I found it a lot more useful to actually use my own body and actually sit in that position and look at the mirror. You kind of see what height my knees would be at in proportion to my arms and like how everything was looking. So honestly, that's way easier than trying to find the right position in some art online. Getting body proportions correct is so hard. You can see from this angle, there's actually a little curve in her leg, which makes it look like the bone is curved. So I have to go back over while I'm adding the muscle and try and straighten that out a little bit. It's really awkward building humans. Everybody knows what a human looks like, but getting it to look proportional in a build is very difficult, especially on this scale, which is just a little bit smaller than I would normally be comfortable going. Adding some back muscles to her and then switching back to the front to work on the legs a little bit and take off those arms because we need to get them in the right position. One is going to be sort of draped over her knees and the other one is just in the front a little bit, holding onto that other arm. I'm going to give her some shoulder muscles, although I don't really end up giving her enough. She's a very petite little fairy for sure. I've definitely made her way too thin. For the head, I'm going to be building it straight and then rotating it slightly to the side so that she's just glancing off into the distance and pasting that back in place. Once I'm happy with her, I'm going to change her out to birchwood and then we'll begin on the terrain. So for the terrain, I'm just going with a very basic shape. It just needs to be sort of a big enough rock for her to sit on and to fit a little bit of atmospheric flowers and such around. Going with a very basic shape, doing this with voxel. And then we're going to be changing it out to the gray concrete color. I like the contrast that this provides because I'm going to be putting the fairy in a lot of lighter colors, like lighter pinks and whites. Her wings were very challenging. At first I wanted to do some really big, fancy fairy wings, but I decided that I wanted this fairy to remain sort of small and simple, so I went with some sort of butterfly-inspired wings, and I think they work out well. Definitely give her that fairy look without overwhelming the build. I think if I was to do a larger scale build, or maybe just do this build again, I would definitely do some better fairy wings. But we live and learn. For her skirt, I want to do sort of a flower petal type effect, going all the way around, alternating colors. I'm going to be doing this in a nice pink tone. Some of the petals being textured while some of them not. And just sort of a very simple outfit for her. She also gets a nice shirt that's made out of leaves, wrapping all the way around her wings. I actually had it cross over in the back because her wings are there, so imagine it would be rather awkward to wear a shirt if you're a fairy. Then we change out her skirt to those pink colors that we just talked about, texture the rock a little bit, and we're going to move on to the hair. The hair was quite a challenge for me. I wanted it to look like sort of my reference picture that I was going off of, which you can see in the description. I will link it. It's kind of like a breeze is blowing over her in this moment, so her hair is blowing to one side, and on the other side it's sort of tucked under her arm so it's not blowing. I kind of like the look that this gives, or maybe she's just swished her hair to one side. I don't really know. We've only caught her in one moment. Sometimes I wish we could make these builds move. It'd be so much fun. Now it's time to add some atmosphere around our little fairy rock here. We're going to be doing some cattails, adding back our water. Then we're going to go in for some ferns and flowers all around the rock. And these little details are really going to make a big difference to this build. We want to get lots of color in here to represent all of the spring flowers. One of my favorite parts of spring is looking along the side of the roads and you finally see those colors coming to life in the grass after winter. Now we're going to be adding some detail to her wings, just some simple little swirls and some white glass and concrete in there. And of course, to top her off, we're going to be adding in her little fairy ears and a nice flower crown. Adding some vines around the rock, one going up her leg, and now we're going to be moving on to what she's looking at. So because I had her glancing to the side, I wanted her to be looking at something, so I decided doing a little hummingbird would be a lot of fun. I actually looked up a reference image for this and found one that looked like sort of a rainbow, so I decided to go with that. And I think it turned out fairly cute. It's really hard to get the shaping right on this sort of small scale. Now moving on to some more details for the water, some lily pads and other flowers and plants to go all around. I think this really adds the final touch of detail to this build. Once I feel like we've got enough plants in, we're also going to be adding some fun little bugs, some bees and butterflies. I had a lot of fun building this. They're very similar to the ones in my flower forest, except this time I did 2 different positions for the butterfly, one that's sort of flapping its wings down and one that's up. Alright, that's it for this build. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me build this. It was definitely a lot of fun to create. I hope your guys' spring is awesome. Tell me in the comments what your favorite part of the spring season is. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!